Hey everybody, it is Wintermute. I'm coming to you from the think tank, and this is going to be a very different video. First off, let me say flat out, thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for saving Dungeons and Dragons. Back in the late 90s, it was going to die off. TSR was mismanaging it. It was a mess. It wasn't really going to survive. It didn't have the brand recognition that it has now. And Wizards of the Coast swooped in, bought the license, and then shortly after they put out the open gaming license, which I think that if they hadn't done the OGL, D&D would have survived as a brand, but it would never be where it is today. Never. Not in a million years would it be where it is today. I'm very confident with that. Obviously, there's no alternate universe we can shift over to and see how it would have turned out. But at the end of the day, I'm very confident with that. Not only that, but the open gaming license empowered the players to be part of the creative process more than just playing the game. They can take the games that they play with their friends at their own home and create them and build them up to the point where they can actually publish them and make money on them. And Wizards of the Coast, the open gaming license, basically said, "Good, that's good. That's good for us. That's good for you. That's good for the hobby. That's good for the brand. That's good for everyone." So yeah, this is good all around. So thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for giving us the open gaming license and saving D&D when I think there was a very good chance it would have died off in obscurity. Um, but this current round of bullshit, and people throw around corporate greed, and you know what? I'll tell you straight up. I'm a free market libertarian. I really am, and so I don't jump on that bandwagon. But it is really hard not to call this anything other than just absolute corporate greed. Um, in the sense that you have a amazing you have a good product that people are happy with, but then you want to squeeze it to the point and squeeze the community to the point where it's going to revolt against you. That is corporate greed. So yeah, while I don't normally jump on that kind of bandwagon, I think they're right here. I think you guys are shattering all goodwill. For anybody watching this that isn't familiar with the situation, the open gaming license, which used to give the community permission to go ahead and just create content, publish it with the D&D rules and all that, and the intellectual property associated with the D&D books, and there were documents that covered, hey, what you can talk about, what you can't in your books. Um, and overnight, and I was there. I was there when this happened, and overnight, companies just popped up all over the place, and game store shelves just became full of third-party products, and it was like it was really an awesome time. It really was an awesome time to be a gamer. And to hell, I was part of that. I was part of third edition, and I still have, even though I don't play third edition anymore, I still have some of those supplements that were put out because they were so good. They dealt with topics that the mainstream, game design companies weren't going to deal with. I've got a source book about the mythology of Africa for use in the D20 system. I love that book because it's so out of the ordinary. I love to listen, reading about the mythology of a lot of African cultures that I just don't get exposed to in my day to day life. And so that's one of the ones that I kept even after I got out of third edition. And there are others that fall into that same category. So it was a great time to be a gamer. But and you could go, I can go make money being creative by starting my own company and selling my PDFs online and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are still some of those original companies still around. And then, of course, there was some rocky areas, the Piazzo lawsuit and all that, but that lawsuit Wizards lost, and we have Pathfinder Second Edition, and I am an avid Pathfinder player. I don't play D&D anymore, but the open gaming license still matters to me. Not only if they get away with this lock, stock, and barrel, it will wreck any product under the open gaming license, where they are, even if they don't have to pay the royalties and things like that, they're going to have to strip out their product and redesign it, which means all new runs, all new prints, all new, basically a new edition, most likely. So this is an absolute disaster for the gaming community. It is, and I watched the actual, I watched bits and pieces, or I tried to find. I don't know why my camera's. There we go. I tried to find the actual full fireside chat where the owner of Hasbro and the president of Wizards of the Coast talked about this event and talked about this entire thing. And I know I'm bouncing around a bit because I'm really hot under the collar about this. And I apologize, but I will get to my point. Um, to watch this fireside chat where they talk about what their plans are for their respective companies. Hasbro being the owner of Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast, the president of the company basically got up there and said, "Oh yeah, well, this tabletop RPGs and this sort of thing is under monetized." And we plan on bringing in, and I'm paraphrasing, we plan on bringing in a model similar to what you see in video gaming to the tabletop gaming scene, which means loot boxes and microtransactions and paying for everything out, and the game's never fully developed. It's always in a state of pre-release, and they're always going to expect more money and ask for more money and things like that. Now that's not every video game that's out there. Don't get me wrong. But that is what I just mentioned is a chronic problem within the video game industry. But she got up there and talked about it like, oh yeah, of course, and they'll just accept it because that's clearly this is clearly the same kind of thing, and this is what they want, right? This is what people want. This interview was so incredibly tone deaf as to be mind boggling, and I've only seen the clips, and the clips were bad enough. I really do want to sit down and watch the whole thing if I can find it. Um, but I'm trained to be a public information officer, to give press conferences and things like that. And so I watched this and I just cringed. Every clip I saw because there were so many problems made. First off, she shouldn't be the one talking about this. This should always be an underling. So that way, if the underling says something, be it wrong, or they made a mistake, or they said something that was very unpopular, then the boss can always come back and say, "Oh, there was a misunderstanding. Calm down. I'm the boss, so I'm going to go ahead and fix this." And you come away looking sweet, but that's okay. That's an accepted practice within doing press conferences and PR. So right there, that was a mistake because already if Wizards even wanted to walk this back, wanted to walk back pulling the license like they are, um, now she looks like a fool because she's the one who has to back up, undo her own statements. But and then the verbiage she used and wanting to monetize gamers and talk. I'm just sitting there screaming to myself, where are your handlers? Honest to God, where are your handlers? It's telling you, where are your PR people telling you, ma'am, you cannot get up there and say this. You cannot tell tabletop gamers that we are going to treat you like video gamers and we are going to monetize you in the same way we monetize video games. Because you want to know what? The vast majority of video gamers hate that. You are only getting away with it because people have very little recourse against you. The tabletop gaming industry is different. And if for no other reason than all I need is a pen and paper and my imagination, people will just walk away from your product. You will never get away with this in the way that you think you will. You might be successful on some level, but you will be nowhere near as successful as you thought you were going to be. You've already failed on so many levels because you don't understand the business that you're in charge of. And this, you've seen this before. This happens with CEOs sometimes. When they're brought in from another company to do X, Y, and Z, but they really don't take the time to learn the industry that they're now involved in. So there were so many problems with this, so many PR problems with this that it was just such a tone deaf, cringy nightmare. And then the way they did it, there's so many problems with this. You know, they did it like Christmas, and then they said, "Oh yeah, you got like 10 days to respond and sign off on the 1.1 OGL." Already, that's a horrible business practice, and you were not working in good faith to do it that way, and they know this. They know this. This is this. There are so many dirty corporate tactics at play here that it really just watching it really puts a sour taste in your mouth. And then the wording of the OGL. I mean, clearly, when you actually look at the wording of the new OGL, which it's not. It's not an open gaming license. It's not. It might be a license, but it's not an open gaming license. Not even close. You can't even call it that. So we're just going to call it 1.1 from now on. The 1.00A, I think, is what the previous one was called. But they also got up in that interview and flat out gave you misinformation. They said, "Well, the original open gaming license was never intended to be a way to for us to you know give permission to our competitors and give them a platform to outperform us." You're wrong. It absolutely was, and that's already from. And while that was never the intent to give, well, it wasn't the intent to have competition overshadow you, i.e., Pathfinder. The intent was that everybody could partake in this, and there was always the possibility that somebody might overtake you, but that's still better for the community as a whole. And they also went on to say, so we're going to oh, what was the term that they used? We're going to. The intent was never to allow it to go on forever, and we could always rescind it. No, again, the original author said that is not true, and he will be on doing an interview on Roll for Combat tomorrow, which I'm going to be watching. But he's already publicly stated that's not true. This license was the original OGL was never intended to be withdrawn. It wasn't even supposed to be allowed to, like legally. But there is also people that have said that the legal wording that needed to be in there to prevent that may not be in there. So this whole thing is an absolute train wreck. They are destroying the industry around them in hopes of picking up the pieces and saying mine, 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 because all right off the bat, you know, not only do you have to pay royalties to them now if you use the open gaming license, and that's a complete cluster. I mean, let me clarify. I could spend a good hour talking about any one of these. You could take any one statement I'm saying, and you could almost do it. I could do a whole video hour. So I'm condensing this. I'm just so angry, but I want to get this out there, and so their goal is to shatter the industry, to push all third party people out, and to completely undermine the people who are currently making third party products. You know, mainly their biggest competitor, Pathfinder. Um, so ultimately, now there's all sorts of speculation. I think that they are going to fail spectacularly, even more so than they already are. They've completely misgauged this industry. They've completely misgauged the people within it. I've watched 30 to 40 YouTube videos now about people whose entire channel was dedicated to D&D, and they're just saying, "Well, I'm done. I'm not signing this." Nope. Because if you use the open gaming license and you create product under this open gaming license, Wizards inherently owns that product. I'm not joking. I am not joking. This is literally the wording that is out there. Multiple sources have confirmed this. And I've seen the actual written. Not, I haven't held a copy, but I've seen it posted on people's websites, and these people are also doing the research. So this is a huge deal. The tabletop board gaming industry is about to. There's a very good chance that it could be shattered, as we know it. D&D is as we know it is gone, which brings me kind of to my point. Um, Now again, like I said, I don't play D&D anymore. I prefer the Pathfinder system overall, and there are a couple other RPGs that I prefer to play over D&D anyway. I'm an old school World of Darkness and Shadowrun kind of guy. So, those kind of, I would rather play those instead of D&D, although Pathfinder is right up there with them. That's me. However, D&D still has a lot of brand recognition, and they've had a record year because of other people supporting them, i.e., Stranger Things and in part the success of Critical Role. And now they are going to basically undo all the people and screw them over that have made them famous and help that brand recognition. And so I'm walking away from Wizards of the Coast completely. I'm not spending any money on Wizards of the Coast. I'm not spending one dime ever again on Magic the Gathering. Any product by from either of those games is just a no go. And to be honest, and I know this may seem a little harsh, anybody who does sign that and continue to publish, I'm not going to buy your product either. Now, I understand there are some people who are very in a rock between a rock and a hard place because their projects are halfway done or they're 90% done, and it's like, look, I got to sign it, I got to get this out there, I got to get what money out of it I can, even though they're going to take 25% of from me, even more. But I got to finish this because it's better that I make 10% than the 35% I was going to make. At least 10% comes back to me. Okay, I've made money on this, and now I can go do something else. But but those people who are in between a rock and a hard place, I get it, and they're probably going to be in that position where they're going to have to spend that money. They're going to have to grin and bear it, and then they're most likely going to walk away because who's gonna just hand over the keys to your business to Wizards of the Coast on a whim, literally on a whim. And there are so many provisions of this that are just so, the word draconian is being thrown around, and it is. This is an absolute, we are going to, fuck it. You know what? We're going to just push everything we can. We're going to push this as far as we can get. And whatever they don't push back on, we'll call a victory. Even if we only get 2% of what we want, whatever. But if they let us get away with half of it, oh great, well, we got away with half of it. This is the whole thing is absolute insanity. And and like I said, I could do it. There's going to be somebody's going to do a documentary on this clusterfuck at some point. It's going to be 8 hours long, explaining all the details. Because I'm not even getting into all the legalese crap, and I am somewhat familiar with the legal system, so I actually understand a lot of what's being said and some of the concepts behind it. So I can comment on that, but I'm just not going to at this point because so much of it is speculation. But no more Wizards of the Coast. I'm not going to go to the D&D movie. Not that I had high hopes for it anyway. No Wizards products ever again. Hasbro, I'm probably just going to shit all over Hasbro too, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to sign every single petition I can. One guy even suggested going onto their one D&D survey site and filling out every single survey answer with "I will not support any D&D 1 product until the original OGL 1.0A is fully restored." You know what? Yeah, I think that's okay. So I'm publicly, and I've watched, like I said before, I've watched channel after channel after channel after channel on YouTube. Just go, wow, I guess I'm done. I'm not going to do this. I don't even have to. I'm not big enough to pay royalties, but I am not going to work my butt off to build a business for myself and then have wizards swoop in and say, "Hey, we like all of your intellectual property. We're gonna incorporate that into the next edition of D&D, and you don't get anything from us." And the wording is literally in there. So I know this is primarily a board gaming channel, but this can easily affect every facet of the gaming industry and the subsets of the gaming industry. This could create case law that could have huge impacts on intellectual property and copyright and open gaming licenses for decades, if not generations. That's how big this case is. And I've already heard that Forbes and Wall Street Journal and some of these other big news agencies and business agencies are already picking up on this, and they're already talking to people, trying to get their facts straight so that because they're going to start running stories on it. I mean, this is a even though the tabletop gaming industry is a very small subset of gaming in general, this is such an unprecedented thing that it really draws attention to it. It makes these big corporations look at it. And you want to know what? I honestly wonder whether or not these big corporation mentality, the people who the famous actors that are involved in this D&D movie are aware of this because you know how woke culture gets and how these knee jerk people can get, especially when it comes to evil corporations. Now, yeah, they may not want to bite the hand that feeds, and there may be contracts that say you can't do that. But on the other hand, how would they feel about doing a sequel or something else? They could always come out and support of the actual third party publishers, even if it's not on any sort of official way. But that can people will listen to famous voices like that. So I don't know. As somebody put this on their Twitter or tweets or whatever or Facebook, I don't know. I'm curious about that. I'm curious if because there are famous people who play D&D too, and I wonder how they're going to respond to this. I'm sure some people that they know are already kind of like, man, how do you feel about this? Because this is so toxic to the survival of D&D. And this goes back to my point before. They're not going to be as successful as they think they were. Because the brand at this point, because the brand is at an all-time high. If you weren't aware, D&D is at an all-time high. This and the sheer backlash is going to cause the brand to shrink. Now, I believe Wizards expected it to shrink somewhat, but I do not think that they expected this kind of backlash. And the brand is really going to shrink because all the third party support just dies up and it creates a lot of ill will. And that ill will spread out to other communities, especially gaming communities. Even people who don't play D&D know about the open gaming license. So they may go, wow, holy crap. And then, of course, a lot of people just love to jump on the anti-big, bad corporate bandwagon. So hey, maybe there can be an upswell of support for an anti-Wizards sentiment, which can be used against them. But the brand is going to shrink. Now, like I said, Wizards expected this, and they felt that well, we're just going to weather that, and then we're going to keep growing because we're Dungeons and Dragons. We can't fail. We're not too big to fail. Tell that to TSR. And yes, you absolutely can run a brand into the ground. And there's already, I mean, there's already OGL products that are already scrubbing everything from their rulebook, saying nope. There's one project I can't remember what it was called. It's not a system I'm familiar with. The community that supports this open gaming project is literally posting a paragraph on their forums, and then everybody is looking at it and going, okay, you got to remove that word and that word and that word, and you're going to have to rewrite this sentence. Okay, great. Then they'll go do that, and then okay, here, look at this. Here's the revision. Okay, revision looks good. Okay, we put that paragraph back. Now we're going to pull it. I mean, they are combing through their own system, which was originally designed under the OGL, and they are scrubbing it in every way, shape, and form so that they completely sever themselves from Wizards of the Coast. And more power to them. And I've already heard at least two different people today, just today, on two different YouTube channels, talk about, oh, hey, this company has said, all right, we're divorcing ourselves from Wizards and 5th edition altogether, other than the projects we already have in the pipeline. But we are now working on our own rule system, completely divorced from the OGL. And so now Wizards they've created 100 new competitors overnight. And Wizards is so confident in their position and their brand recognition that they think that whatever, who cares? But I think that this could really, because I think a lot of this has to be dealt with in court. But remember, Piazzo's already defeated Wizards of the Coast in court regarding the open gaming license. And there is no way Wizard or Pathfinder and Piazzo's buckling under on this. So God bless you, and fight the good fight, because this is the good fight. So again, my point being, this is a complete disaster for the gaming industry as a whole. Complete disaster. It's a complete disaster for Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, as of right now. Whether they can weather it in the long run or not, we'll see. I don't know. That's just, who knows. There's so many factors involved in that. But for my part, and I've already talked about being a bit of a consumer activist on my channel and myself, and using your money or not using your money to support or not support something. So in this case, Wizards of the Coast, never again will I buy a product from them, unless they fully reinstate the OGL. And even then, keep in mind, even if they fully reinstate the original OGL right now, a lot of these people that have said we're walking away, they're not going to come back. Yeah, you already burned us, man. I can't take this risk of you trying this again. You've shown your hand. Um, so so there's that. So even if they do reinstate it, I don't know whether I'm going to run back to them. Not that I buy a lot of Wizards products right now. Although I did actually want to buy the Spelljammer book. I really did. I wanted to buy the Spelljammer book. But then I heard the reviews. Yeah, and they weren't good. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. That's not what I wanted out of my Spelljammer book. But this is precisely part of the reason Wizards, and I do believe this. Wizards, this is part of their motivation, is they know that they cannot compete with the other products out there, and that the only thing they're really relying on is brand recognition. Therefore, they need to go pillage those third parties for good resources so that they can make a better system and keep the system alive. And I do feel that is part of their motivation, at least on a game designer standpoint. That maybe sound really harsh and critical, but yeah, I stand by it. I stand by it. I think that really is part of their motivation from the game design standpoint, so that any third party that comes up with a great idea, they can just snag it without any recourse on them. Yeah, you signed the OGL. So yeah, complete boycott of Wizards. Probably a complete boycott of the new D&D, anything related to D&D at this point. Complete boycott of probably Hasbro moving forward. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research about what companies are associated with Hasbro. And I'll tell you, just Google this, or just go to YouTube and look it up, man. It is going to be, if you want the details, the real crunchy details about you know, how this all panned out and all the details. And like I said, any aspect of this that I've talked about could be a huge deep dive. Just, my God, it is such a cluster, and it is painful to watch. And I was there. I was there when the OGL came out, and this feels so bad. And I have independently praised Wizards of the Coast numerous times over the last couple years for the OGL and how they saved D&D, and now how they are going to ruin D&D. Um, what a shame. I don't know if I'll talk about this more, but for right now, this is Wintermute out.